In this podcast, we chat about what's going on with Boro. Have we been found out? Are the positives to take from the week? And of course, we answer your podcast questions. This is the Boro Breakdown Podcast, and this is our Boro Matchday Chatter in a pod.
Wants support. Curtis Fleming is there on the edge of the area. Fleming for Craig Hignett. Hit it, Higgy. Higgy hits the treble!
Ravanelli coming alive again. Juninho wants the ball played to him. Ravanelli spots out Emerson!
Hello and welcome to the Boro Breakdown Podcast with Jonny and Dana. We are the Boro Podcast that gives you all of your Boro Matchday Chatter in a podcast. And Boro lose to Burnley. We draw against Bristol City. No wins in 3 and Boro dropped to 4th. Dana Malt, how are you feeling about Boro after the last couple of weeks?
A bit strange, to be honest, because I'm a bit frustrated with us from yesterday's game against Bristol City. I can understand and accept the Burnley result because a defeat against champions elect, it was likely to happen. I know I predicted 2-1 in the pre-game show, but that I think was a bit of hopeful thinking, to be honest. But yeah, the game yesterday, people will pin it as a spirited comeback result, and it's good that we got something from it, because I remember saying to you and Tom in our group chat, I wouldn't be surprised if we lost both games over the Easter weekend. So the fact that we've got something is better than I ended up expecting. But for us to be 2-0 down, and I don't want this to turn into a teams like Bristol City rant, because that's not what I'm trying to get across here. I don't mind Bristol City. I think they've got some good players, and I can't hate on a team with that goalkeeper kit. But you know, the first goal is a balance between poor defending and some unfortunate ricochets. Darragh Lenihan slips, it then bounces off him, it bounces off Paddy McNair, it breaks quite kindly for Bristol City. But the second one is just so frustrating. I knew as soon as Ryan Giles tried to turn inside and he lost the ball, that Boro were in big trouble. And people might say that's because of the way that we want to play, the playing out from the back. I don't think that's so much a team style issue. That was just an individual decision issue, because he could have easily passed to Zach Steffen and we could have played out from the back that way, as we usually see under Carrick. So that was really frustrating. That really enraged me, actually. It triggered me so much. It was almost like watching us against Coventry again, that Gyökeres goal that we conceded from our own bloody throw-in. But yeah, we improved after the second goal, but we should never have ever have allowed ourselves to be in that position in the first place. So that's annoying, but I understand that the backdrop is still very much positive, and our all but one of our playoff rivals dropped points. So the cushion is still relatively healthy between us and outside the playoff places. So still positive. Just that game yesterday annoyed me.
To be fair, there's one thing that you said there, like, around the Bristol City kit. Lovely. It's a lovely goalkeeper shirt.
More of that, please.
It reminds me of Middlesbrough's 96, 97, or could be 97, 98. I'm thinking Ben Roberts or Ben Roberto, as he got lobbed from 40 yards off Roberto Di Matteo. But anyway, that lovely kit reminded me of that. But in terms of Boro and how we've been over the last couple of weeks, disappointing, I think, is probably the word, I think, across Boro fans. And I think the rightfully disappointed performances haven't been amazing. I thought against Burnley, I thought we were actually okay. I thought we were set up well. We had a good system about us. Application might not have been perfect, but both teams weren't perfect that game. I don't think any team's perfect. And then yesterday against Bristol City, when we were 2-0 down, I was thinking, oh God, here we go again. Why have we capitulated at this key moment? Good of us to tactically have a blip now and not again in the playoffs, if we were to get that. But I do think that we will get it, and I think we will get it comfortably. I think it's just one big win, and that's it settled for me. So there's so much to be positive about across the season. No need to probably press the panic button, but is a bit disappointing to see us trip up in at such a time where we thought we could potentially get the automatics, and now it's slipped away. But as Grant Levitt famously once said, that's football.
Once said,
He
said in
said
every interview.
many times.
I
But
also
yeah,
like, by the way, Michael Carrick has adopted that. So make a note of how many times Michael Carrick says that's football, because I've noticed it and it makes me chuckle.
well, who's in his backroom staff then? It is Grant Ledbetter. So
Mm.
maybe he's in his ear, and just every mistake or every part of his life, he like forgets to put the kettle on in the morning. That's football. He misses the green light and it goes to amber and red. That's football. Everything could be that could be that's football. But following the international break, then why do you think we've had that poor start? Do you think that teams have slightly adjusted the way that they play against us?
I've noticed in the past 2 away games that Huddersfield and Bristol City set up quite narrow in their defence and in their midfield, because you think about the way that we play, you've got Akpom, Archer, Crooks, whoever's playing in that number 9 position. You've got Howson, you've got Hackney. If McGree's in the team, you've got McGree. If Ramsey's in the team, you've got Ramsey. They all like to come central. And I think teams are content with conceding space out wide so long as they pack those central areas to be able to deal with the deliveries from Ryan Giles. And I noticed against Bristol City there was a moment about maybe 25 yards out where there was some passing going on between Ramsey, Howson and Hackney, but there was no real intent to it at that present time because they had to be incredibly patient. Teams know that a lot of Boro's strengths come initially from the central areas, and I think they're just frustrating us. They're putting 2 walls between us in possession of the ball and their goal, and they're happy with that. And Boro have had to really try hard and wait and be quite patient to try to wait for that opening. So that's what I've noticed. However, what I will say is that, I mean, we've been averaging, I think, over 2 points per game under Michael Carrick. It was always going to happen that we were going to dip below that we were going to endure a little bit of I don't want to say
A moment of unrest.
yeah, I guess
Maybe.
so. Yeah, and relative to our form, a blip.
Mm,
So I'm not really surprised that it's happened necessarily, because it was always going to happen at some point.
yeah.
We've been absolutely flying. We could not continue flying throughout the rest of this season, just bouncing back from a few little setbacks. We had to have a point where we'd record back-to-back defeats. We've done that 3 in a row without a win. I feel like that was always going to happen, to be honest. So I don't think there needs to be a massive inquest. It's frustrating, but I don't think we need to be asking Michael Carrick if he's interested in the Tottenham job anytime soon, because I just don't think anything like that's happening. It's just our form was always going to turn at some point, and unfortunately, it's come during the Easter period, which is usually where emotions are quite heightened and the pressure is quite heightened as well. But we'll see. It's a big test of our bounce back ability after, as I said, 3 games, no wins.
Yeah, look, like I think with these things as well, we always want us to win games, and you rightfully said there, like around, we're always going to have this blip. Prior to the blip, Carrick had like a 72% win rate. Like that is incredible. That is champions form. 64% now is still pretty much promotion form for a manager to come in, and there's a number of things I think you can get frustrated about, and as a fan, but maybe take a step back and look at it as like kind of like a helicopter view. Is it the worst thing in the world to have a blip? Probably not, because you see the best out of a manager when you have these blips. You see, can they change things? Can they maybe implement certain ways to overcome an obstacle that we face? Like for example, like the last couple of games, we've noticed that teams have started to pack midfield, like you mentioned there. So if a team packs a midfield, there's going to be space elsewhere. There's going to be something that we can counter with a counter. A high level sport is all about counters for counters for counters. And it's just a game of chess, right? So it's just on Carrick and the coaching staff and the team, even the players as well, to have these conversations in the changing rooms to how can we overcome this, create the challenge, and how can we overcome it in different ways? Can we maybe move the ball a bit quicker through the thirds in transition because that is our biggest strength? Can we maybe use the width a little bit more? How can we create overloads elsewhere? Like there's so many different things I think you can do. But also, I think it's worth mentioning that every team in the championship has different strengths and different weaknesses. So it's always going to be a challenge, regardless of who you play. So you could play against Wigan, who are bottom of the league, and we might struggle one game. Do you know what I mean? Like because they might have a strength that is our weakness. Like it's very weird football I'm finding, but it's something that I don't think we should get too upset about, that we've had this stumbling block at all. Carrick's had 25, 26 games now as a manager. That's half a season, right? So if you're a data or an analyst or you're working in the game, that is enough video evidence and data to kind of back up what you're seeing and implement stuff which Boro might struggle against. And you see it in the Premier League where like Fulham do amazingly well at the start of the season, like 6th or 7th, and then as this season started to progress, they're starting to regress themselves. Like there's so many different things, right? I think teams have just got enough data on Carrick for now to kind of say, we want to implement our way of playing because that nullifies one thing. But Carrick will have a number of things up his sleeve to implement over the next in a few games. So I don't think it's anything to worry about. I think have Boro been found out? Absolutely not. I think that's a pretty bad football cliche. I just think
I hate that as well. I'm glad that you've mentioned that because I can't stand it when people say that.
I just think that sometimes when a manager gets quote unquote found out, he has players in a system where each team can nullify that strength. And that is something that just happens in football. Like sometimes you get checkmated and teams can overcome it. And that is just the end of your management time at a certain period. But then you'll inherit a different group of players, and then you might implement a different strength. So it's like it's just so many different things, right? So, but in terms of Boro being found out, come on, like we're the highest scorers, one of the highest scorers in the league, 64% win rate, one win away from the playoffs. We were in 22nd in October. Like there's so much to be positive about, and we just don't have to worry too much. But there is like a defensive issue. I think I know like it sounds ridiculous, but there is one defensive issue that we do have. It's a stat that I can't believe I'm saying this, but Boro have conceded the most in the top half with 50 this season. I think it's joint top of Sunderland. So I mean, yeah. But anyway,
summer in the air in the northeast.
Must be something. But our expected like goals against over like last few games, 3 against 2 against Huddersfield, 1.4 against Burnley, which I thought was a 1-1 game. Really, I didn't think it was a 2-1 win. I thought it was very much a draw. And then 3 yesterday against Bristol City. How do you think Carrick can tweak things at the back? I think because obviously there's a lot at the moment. Say McNair and Smith are out of form. They need replacing, etc., etc. What do you think? Where do you think Carrick needs to change things?
I think getting Dale Fry back fit as soon as possible will definitely help, because I'm not as vitriolic in tongue on Paddy McNair's performances, but he does have a tendency to dive in. Paddy, he's a bit on the rash side, whereas I think with Dale Fry he's a lot safer and he's a lot more patient in when he bites, when he goes into tackle, when he goes into press. So I think personnel wise, I think that would definitely help. I said on Tees yesterday, and I thought back about this, and I kind of half disagree with myself. But I said that I don't think it's so much a structural issue. But I do think that structurally it plays a part. But Boro, the way that we play, I think we accept that we're going to concede key spaces. We're not playing with a back 3 anymore, are we? We're playing with with 2 centre halves. And you'll see Tommy Smith will overlap Marcus Forss. Ryan Giles has the freedom of the left-hand side. Even with Houston and Hackney in the centre of midfield, they're not sitting, they're venturing forward as well. So to enable that numerical advantage that we like in the attacking third, we are going to run the risk of having men chasing back on the counter to get that numerical advantage defensively. So structurally, I think at times we can be caught out, but I am fine with that because it's essentially enabled us to be the second highest scorers in the division. I suppose it's about balancing that out and trying to negate as much as we can those defensive weaknesses. But what I will say is, away from the whole structural argument I've just laid on a plate there, defensive mistakes individually are being a bit costly over the past 3 games. It reminds me a lot of earlier the season under Wilder, where and I can't believe that this season we had Chris Wilder. It feels like it was last season, and
Yeah, it does feel like a hot minute, doesn't it?
yeah, there's like been 2 seasons in one, like pre World Cup and then post World Cup. Strange, but earlier on this season we had key defensive errors as well, and we were scratching our heads on this podcast thinking, how have we conceded that? Why have we conceded that? That's kind of creeping back. Our defense has never been particularly strong, and we've noted this. It's been known that Boro's defence, we can let up and give away a lot of big chances. We've got away with that for a large part of Michael Carrick's reign. Much like how I mentioned with our form, it's going to turn at some point. I feel like there was always going to be a point in this season where we weren't going to get away with those types of, chances that we should be conceding, and we haven't been. So yeah, I think it's just a mix of personnel. Getting Dale Fry back fit as soon as possible and putting him back in the team would definitely help that. And structurally,
Yeah.
potentially a little bit of an issue. I don't mind that so much because I think it has equated in Boro being very good attacking wise. And yeah, key individual errors are costing us at the moment.
Yeah, and on the McNair and Smith comments of looking at a form and stuff like that, for me, I think McNair looks really uncomfortable in this current moment. I don't know whether it's like you're saying that a structural issue. Are we giving him enough cover to venture forward and play out from the back, or are we giving him enough cover defensively to hide his mistakes? I think under Wilder, where we used to play a 3, McNair was on the left, or was on the left hand, and he did move to the right as well. But on the left hand side, you'd have maybe Howson drop in, or you'd have someone that would cover across, so it allowed him to come into the midfield, and it played to his strengths. I think that what McNair's strength is he's driving forward the ball and trying to hit a key pass into good areas of the pitch. His weaknesses are that he's not a defender, in a 2, not in a 2, but he doesn't look like a defender. Do you know what I mean? And that's not me slating him or saying that he's a bad footballer. It's just that sometimes when you're playing, you're in a position that just doesn't suit you. It just you feel uncomfortable. You're not as aware. For me, when I was playing, I was a winger. So if I ever came in central, or I was playing at centre half, or at left back, or I'd move to the right hand side, or whatever. Right, I always felt a little bit uncomfortable when I was a bit more central at times. And then, I was as my weaknesses were exposed, and it's the same as Paddy McNair. His position might not be the best position for Paddy McNair. I've seen him play for Northern Ireland, and he's been fantastic. He plays as a 10, or he's playing centre mid. Brilliant. That maybe is his position, but right now we're in a bit of a dire need. So it kind of he needs to play there, and he plays up from the back. That is his strength. That gives us a different option, but defensively we're a bit hindered. And I think him being uncomfortable and not being positionally perfect, it exposes Smith to an extent, because the space between them is a bit big, or we have to occupy a bit more space than we need to, or we're just not as defensively strong. And you'll see teams doubling up on McNair at the moment, which causes Smith to look not as great as he did. So even I think with a personal change for Dykesteel, I think Dykesteel would still have the same issues as what Tommy Smith has, but it's just it's not a thing where we should lose sleep over. It's just one negative in a bunch of positives. Is McNair a good player still? Yeah, he's still a half decent footballer, right? You haven't played at this level for so long, and if you weren't a bad footballer, can he change position? Yes, he can. But is he going to play in centre midfield? Would you like to see Paddy McNair midfield? Probably not. So where are you going to play him? You know what I mean? So that's the thing. And he's playing there because the manager's told him to play there, and also his strength was playing up from the back, and defensively we get a bit exposed with that. But I'm with you. I would like to see Dale Fry come back into centre back, or even Dykesteel. I think Dykesteel could potentially do a job at centre back. I've always liked him in central positions, and I know he played defensive midfield originally, then moved to centre half, then obviously right back. I wouldn't mind seeing him there, but like that is maybe not a time to test that. I don't really know.
No, probably
But
not.
we'll see. Like I know, but there's like you're saying that there's plenty of positives for Boro. You know, he scored 55 goals in 25 games. On the Carrick, we're averaging over 2 a game. What Boro managers really done that? You know, over the years. Like we're gonna have to probably dare back to maybe Brian Robson at times. I can't remember like us doing it under Steve McLaren. So or Karanka or like Tony Pulis, where we scored 46 goals in 49 goals in a
No.
season. Like,
Ugh.
we haven't really been a goal scoring group or a team over like many years. So it's really good to see that. And I would like us to double down on that. You know what I mean? I would rather us win 2-1 every week than scrape a 1-0. Do you know what I mean? Like maybe that's a wrong way of playing it, and maybe someone will have a different opinion and be like, yeah, I want us to win 1-0 every week. But for me, and I don't know what you think, Dana, but like I just think our positives outweigh our negatives in such a way that it is really positive to watch. And I feel like sometimes when we get beat, we forget that. Do you know what I mean? It's like Bristol City, we were 2-0 dead and buried, and we still brought it back. It is good character. It is good. It is good that we've done that. Do you know what I mean? Like teams, a good side doesn't do that. Do you know what I mean? So I don't know. What do you think? Do you think we should double down like on the strength side of things, or would you like to maybe see us rein it back in and become a bit harder to beat?
No, I don't. I mean, I was talking to Benjamin Bloom about this the other day, and he was talking about the dark arts, not Benjamin Button.
I thought you were going to say Benjamin Button.
No,
There, I was going to be absolutely creased.
I always have to think before I speak there because I do go to say Benjamin Button all the time. But yeah, he was sort of saying like,
Sorry.
do we need to engage in the dark arts a little bit more? Because other teams will in the playoffs, and effectively the conversation was around, do we need to maybe shut up shop a lot more than we do, because we have this weird habit and it's fun, but it's also not good for any anxiety, where we make games chaotic. Like at times yesterday against Bristol City, it was really calm, it's really tranquil, it was peaceful, we had control, and then we lost it. And it's a bit like what you said on the last episode, Jonny, where when we lose control, we can lose it almost catastrophically.
Moments of
And
madness. Yeah.
yeah, moments of madness. Our games are never dull. They're never ever dull. And you know what? In my fandom supporting Middlesbrough, I've said this before, I've just seen dull football. I've
Yeah.
gone to the game and I've come home and I've just thought, well, that wasn't very good, was it? You know, it wasn't fun. It wasn't engaging. It wasn't entertaining. It was nothing. It was just a whole load of nothingness. So I am happy to kind of ride through that anxiety. Other people will not like it. They will much prefer what you just said there, a 1-0 win every day of the week. But for me, I like the fun. I like the fact that we score goals. And if that means that we concede a few chances, big chances, listen, I'm going to come on this podcast, I'm going to moan about it. But then I'm going to go away from this laptop and I'm going to be like, fine. I can accept it. I can accept it. I'll whinge about it, but I can accept it. So, yeah, I like the way that we play. I don't really want to see us tweak anything or change anything spectacularly, and I don't think Michael Carrick will do that. I think he'll probably stick to his guns. It's got us to where we are. That's the thing. It's got us to where we are, and I don't really think many people will complain about the fun or the chaos of it all.
Yeah, well, look, embrace the chaos is probably the best way to say it. Like, there is going to be moments of madness in Boro's games. Like, I think teams that obviously are, and we'll come to it in the questions. Like, they are finding ways to hit us. When we're coming out from half time or like the start of the game. Key moments where if you're coming at the game a little bit cold, you're gonna know about it. But with Boro, like I think there is moments where it can be chaotic and end to end, but I think sometimes that brings out Boro's strengths in that transition. You know, if teams want to bomb forward, brilliant, because we will counter in such a really positive way and create a lot of problems for you. And we're doing that in conceding chances, but the amount of chances we create, no wonder Tube has scored 26 goals this season. You know what I mean? Like, I think I would score 26 goals. No, I'm joking. 30. I'd score 30 goals, essentially. But, like, you know what I mean? We've got goal scorers all over the pitch, and we've never had that in a long time. And it's just, I think sometimes I'm like, maybe, like, being overly positive, but, like, I think there's just some things where, like, where it just excites me to watch us, and I feel quite calm that we might get the playoffs unless something catastrophic happens, which could happen, But I think the overall arching thing is that it's bright, and hopefully we can do something positive in the next few games. Which I think from like the weeks just gone, and probably we'll push it back further to the international break where we got beat off Huddersfield. These last 10 days, are there actually many positives to take from the 2 defeats and a draw?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, we still are scoring goals, we're still creating chances. We should never, ever, ever take that for granted. So it's good that we can get ourselves into positions where we can get something out of the game after having taken a few setbacks. Obviously, it was not going to happen against Huddersfield. I did think, though, at 2-1, I was like, yeah, we're going to win this 3-2, it'll be fine. And then obviously what happened. But we still score goals, which is good. I think Aaron Ramsey is brilliant. I really, really rate him. I think he has been good. So there's a positive. Crooks scoring as well. Everyone always says to me, Crooks is shit. He scores goals.
Just in the middle of Lazenby, someone just comes Crooks is shit, and
But the thing is people will say that, but I'd much rather Crooks be shit and score goals than him just be shit. So yeah, Matt Crooks getting on the score sheet as well. I just personally always love to see Matt Crooks score because I think he's a brilliant human being and a brilliant person to have at the football club and a good footballer. He's a good footballer. People will say that he isn't, but I think that he is, in my opinion. So yeah, and also what I mentioned at the top of the show as well. Millwall lost, Norwich drew, Blackburn drew, our playoff rivals, bar Luton, obviously, the fun suckers, they all drop points. So that's also a positive.
And Preston, who we obliterated, now 7th, which
Crazy.
is just a nuts league where anything can happen. But how many points do you reckon we need, Dana, to secure the playoff spot? I mean, appreciate it. We can be confident that we'll probably get there. Appreciate it is 6 points with 5 games to go, and that could be nothing, given the championship. But how many points do you reckon we need to keep things secure and comfortable?
I never know how to answer these questions because it's not just Boro, is it? It's our playoff rivals and what they do. I will look at the run-ins of each team below us. So Millwall have an informed Preston next, then they have Birmingham, Wigan, Blackpool, and Blackburn. So fairly tame
Tough.
run, I would say.
Yeah. Millwall
Some tough
struggle
games,
against
but
teams that sit deeper. They can't break them down.
but there are
Oh,
some
for
crap
example.
teams there, Wigan and Blackpool particularly. Blackburn have a really difficult run. They have a harder run than we do. They've got Hull, Coventry, Preston, Burnley, Luton, and Millwall. And I'm never convinced by Blackburn. I always feel like Blackburn find a way to bottle it. Like they just, I never feel like they'll get into the top 6 because of that.
Wasn't the thing that I don't think that we shared it, but well, I think it was a chat with me, you and Tom. Wasn't it the Blackburn could be 17th or something based on their expected points this season? Is it something ridiculous like that?
Yeah, we were talking about it after the last podcast, weren't we? And I noticed Blackburn, they were quite far down the table in terms of expected points. So yeah, whether you put a lot of weight into that or not, it's absolutely up to the individual. But based on that, they've massively, massively overperformed. But then Norwich, they have obviously ourselves, QPR, Swansea, West Brom, and Blackpool. So fairly decent there for them. Preston, the ones to keep an eye out on at the moment. They've got Millwall, Swansea, Blackburn, Sheffield United, and Sunderland. So that's a pretty difficult run in. Obviously, for ourselves, we've got Norwich, and then we've got Hull, Luton, Rotherham, and Coventry. I'm going to say if we win the next 2 games, that's fine. I think that's probably comfortable for us. Back-to-back home games there, it's a massive opportunity. I would probably say, 6 points our next 2 games. I think we will be comfortable in the playoffs.
Yeah, I'm the same. I mean, 2 wins will do it. Or probably even 1 win and teams drop. Like it's
Yeah.
just creating, like a bit more of a space than we need it to be. And like we could win 5 games in a row, and you never know. With Sheffield United, they might just slip
Don't,
up.
Johnny, don't.
And then Luton will finish seconds, and then we'll
Yeah.
play them in the final. Carnage, absolute carnage. But let's move on. And talk about some news from today that Matt Carrick is up for a manager of the season in the EFL awards, whilst Tuba Akpom and Hayden Hackney are up for player of the season and young player of the season, respectively. And I'll let you choose who's up for what on that one. But the winners will be announced on the 23rd of April. Then it really does show how good of a job Carrick's done since he's came in the building, doesn't it? To manage 25, 26 games and to be nominated for Manager of the Season award. I've seen Tuba have unreal form and Hayden Hackney coming into the group. Appreciate it was Leo that brought him in, but for Carrick to keep him in, it just shows like collectively what a good job and second half of the season it's really been, right?
Yeah, and he doesn't have to win that because I think we as Boro fans know what he's brought to this club and to this town in such a short space of time. And I don't think he needs an award to kind of confirm that, although it would be nice to win it, wouldn't it? I mean,
Yeah.
it probably won't happen because it's Vincent Kompany, obviously. Burnley are going up as champions, aren't they? So he'll probably take that one. But I think we've got a good chance with the player of the season. If Akpom doesn't win that, then it's payback for Patrick Bamford winning the player of the season in 2015 ahead of Daryl Murphy. But he doesn't. None of them need the awards for us to appreciate them. But yeah, would be nice for us to win one, wouldn't it?
He doesn't need an award, then. He's already won our hearts and souls.
Who? All of them.
Yeah, why not? Why not? Room for 3 people in it. Room for 3. Anyway, that helps me segue to the present place, because the present place is the place I like to give praise to a manager, a player, a fan. I don't even know where to praise anymore. To be honest, I've said so much on this podcast. I just don't even know what's
I was
good
going to say
anymore.
my pink hair. It's not really pink anymore, to be honest.
Your
It's more
peach-coloured
peach.
hair. Yeah, peach-coloured hair. There we go. We know our colours on this podcast. So Dale, who gets your place in the present place this week?
I want to shot Aaron Ramsey in there again. I know I
Aaron Ramsey.
mentioned my praise of him earlier, but his goal changed that game, and it was a really aesthetically pleasing goal as well. As you tweeted on the Boro Breakdown account, he definitely did shout macaroni before he headed that in. I think every diving header is just a Massimo Macaroni header, right? We don't see them too often. That's probably the first one we've seen since 2006, but that was a good goal and it changed the game. And then obviously he supplied the assist for Crooks's equaliser. So I really rate Ramsey. I mentioned last episode that I wasn't really expecting too much from him, but I feel like he might end up being better than his brother, Jacob, who's a very good player as well. I think, didn't you mention that one of your Aston Villa contacts did say that he's rated
He
a little
did.
bit higher than Jacob? So
He did. They
got two good
really
brothers
do
there.
not want. They really do not want to sell Cameron Archer and Aaron Ramsey. So I'll be interested to see what Unai Emery does. But they're in top 6 now, aren't they, in the Premier League? So we
Mm.
could have them. We could have them for another year, right? What's another year between friends?
Yeah.
So
With
but yeah,
the lovely darling that is Ollie Watkins, one of my favourite strikers outside of obviously any Boro player. He's doing really well this season, or is definitely improved of late anyway in terms of his form. So Cameron Archer, come back. I know you haven't left yet, but Come back.
Please. Please, Cameron, I know you're watching. Please come back. Well, I don't know what it was there, but you triggered a memory there for me when you said
Go on then.
darling. Like, like the Carlin darling thing from that video
You
from
can't beat a bit of Carlin darling.
Yeah, from like 2004 Carlin Cup final from the Dickens.
Oh,
That is
love
arguably
that.
probably one of the best videos I think I've ever seen. And if you haven't seen it, I don't even know how you can find it, to be honest. It's just the best thing I've ever seen.
We'll retweet it or something. We'll post it on Twitter somewhere.
Yeah, I think that video in itself could be in the praise and place, to be honest. We could call it like the Carlin Darling praise and place on this podcast. But who
Can I-
gets my... Go on.
Can I just put another one in there as well? So Boro have been nominated for the EFL Diversity Award as well for their River Side by Side campaign, their equipment commitment, sorry, to
The corner
equality.
flags, the ball back, the
Oh, their
goalposts.
commitment to the equipment, their commitment to equality, diversity, and inclusion. So that's brilliant for us to be nominated for that as well. So yeah, well done to everyone at Boro behind the scenes for that one as well.
Yeah, congratulations, Boro. All the positive things come up from this season. All the awards that we're getting. So it's really good to see. But I'm trying to think of who can I put in the praise and place this week. Aaron Ramsey definitely should be in there, for his saving grace performance on Monday. And oh God, I don't know who else I could put in really. I like Zach Steffen. He gets.
I was going to say Stefan, yeah.
He gets a bit of heat, but people need to understand he's slow on the ball because it attracts pressure. And when people attract pressure, what does that create? Space. And it helps us play. So please let him kick the ball in peace. I'm
pretty
sick of
bad
it.
when Carrick's telling the crowd to calm down as well. Like,
yeah,
it's cringeworthy to a degree that Stefan and Cole are getting heckled because the way that we're playing is the reason why we are where we are. So yeah, if anyone is listening and does vocally what's the
challenge.
Challenges the way that we play. I would like to ask why, politely.
Well, just want to hit along into the channels, because everyone loves that. I mean, to be fair, it can be effective. I mean, look at Neil Warnock. Like, he's had 20% possession in the last 3 games, scored 10. So, I mean, you can't. Wins the old direct approach. It is lost, to be fair, and teams should play in some sort of direct way because it helps diversifying the league. So, who knows? But anyway, you get found out eventually and it all falls apart, like I said earlier in the podcast. But anyway, podcast questions. So every week you get the chance to send us your question via Twitter, Boro_breakdown. Email us at theborobreakdown@hotmail.com or join our Telegram chat where we chat everything but Boro. And you can join the Telegram chat for absolutely free of charge. We post some news in there through the broadcasting side of things. We chat about football stuff and maybe we might even chat about the Wobbly Goblin. When that, it's just all fun and games. Anyway, the first question, it's from Ted, it's on Twitter, and he says, is it a worry how slowly we start after the restart of Bristol City, Huddersfield 2 in the last 3 games where we started a little bit slow? Dana, is it a bit of a worry? Those moments of madness, I guess, coming back, right?
Not after the restart, no, because Boro are actually, in terms of goals scored, pretty good after the break. We've scored 23 goals this season in the 15 minutes after half time. That's a lion's share of a 15-minute block. That's 31% of our total goals as well. No team in the Championship has scored more in that time. I wouldn't really say this is a concern, but the annoyance for me is the 15 minutes at the start of games in the first half, because we've conceded 13 in the opening 15 minutes of a game, more than in any other 15-minute block in a football match. And 8 of those goals that we've conceded in the opening 15 minutes have come under Michael Carrick. So There are slow starts in the beginning of games, but as I've said a few times in response to this question or this kind of question, because we are such a good goal scoring team, it's not a concern to me. It's just a little bit of an annoyance that sometimes, performance wise and in terms of goals conceded, we can sometimes start a little bit sluggishly. But for all of the narrative around these slow starts, I do think it is worth praising the stat that I just mentioned there, that the majority of Boro's goals that we've scored this season have come between the 46th and 60th minute. I think that's really good. And when you see it visually, I don't have the graphic to hand at the moment, but we'll post it on Twitter. I think we have posted it on Twitter earlier this season. It's really good. It's really impressive that we come back out after halftime and score 31% of our total goals tally in that time. I think that's brilliant. So yeah, performance-wise, sometimes we do start a little bit slowly in games, but when we get going, and I think that's fine for me.
Yeah, wasn't it? I think it was on Sky Sports yesterday about the stats of Boro's goals. I think we're -1 goal difference in the first half and +27 in the second half or something daft like
Yeah,
that. I think
massive
I'm
contrast, massive
yeah.
improvement.
It's not how we start, it's how we finish. And you never know, that could be promotion. So I'm hoping that can be our start. That could be the story of our season. Started horrendous, and then finished well. But who knows? Next question is from Gareth, and I'll take this one day. And it says, "Do we think it's time Dijksteel starts over Paddy if Dale isn't fit? I hope we are getting our wobble out of the way and now be ready for the playoffs." To be honest, Gareth, like I mentioned earlier, as much as I'd love to see Dijksteel there, and I absolutely love Anthony Dijksteel. We even got a flag with him on, and even Johnny's happy place. Dijksteel is the sun.
I mean, that flag's a bit redundant now, isn't
It
it?
is,
I need
yeah,
to
it is
get
a
a
bit redundant. Yeah,
Suriname one.
yeah. So, but in terms of like his style and attributes, can he play there? Yes. Will he be good there? I think he could be, and I would like to see. I've always liked to see Dijksteel in a central position because I just feel like he fits that like quarterback role really of like centre back and just centre defensive mid, like someone just between that would be perfect for him. And he played really really well in a three, but would he be would he be the right fit now? Probably not. I think I think we've missed too many games now where I feel like it's a bit of ring rust and like he's just not going to be as sharp as you want him to be to come into the 11 now and hit the ground running. So for me, I think you've got to double down on McNair. And I know he's out of form, and I know it's not the right position for him, but maybe just one more game whilst Fry's just recuperating for whatever he's done. And then he'll come back in and things will be rosy again. But would I like to see Dexter there? Why not? Is it going to fit right now? Probably not. But who knows? And the final question, D, and the final moments of this podcast is about Dan Balassa, because we got a lot of questions saying, where is Balassa? Who is Balassa? Why is a
Who is
Balassa?
Balassa?
Why is a Balassa? So what do you think? Why do you think he's not playing, D? Because he's definitely a fantastic footballer. Just hasn't really got that look in just yet. So where do you think? Where is Balassa? Why is Balassa? Who is a Balassa? I don't know.
Well, where is he? He's on the bench. But I mean, I think the reason why he's not being playing is because in Michael Carrick's eyes, Howson and Hackley probably haven't done anything wrong, or definitely haven't done anything wrong to make them to make him drop them, to be honest. So they have performed really, really well under him so far. And yes, I do think in Hackney's case in particular, he has dropped a little bit below his usual standard, the very high standard that he himself has set, such as his fantastic emergence this season. But from Michael Carrick's point of view, he probably just trusts them because they've both performed well under him. So Barlas is just going to have to wait, unfortunately. And in the case of Dale Fry, by the way, I just want to mention this because a lot of people don't seem to know that Dale Fry was injured. There's a lot of post-match questions around where Dale Fry was. Carrick obviously mentioned on BBC Tees that he got a knock in training. He said, so at this moment in time, we're still waiting to see. It was only in the last couple of days that he got that knock. So as of right now, we don't really know yet. We're assessing him and we'll have to make a call when we get back home tomorrow. So yeah, Dale Fry is injured, basically.
Sorry, Dana, my connection dropped for a split second, but you carried on very well there.
I didn't even realise.
But no, it was a good bit of an interview, well, not interview from Carrick, like good information, because I think I think it's very easy to point the finger of saying why is Fry being dropped? Has he said something in training or whatever? But yeah, I think I don't think he's been fully fit. I think that's why we haven't been playing him for like the last few weeks. I just think he hasn't been 100%, so we've not wanted to risk him. So, but it'd be good to have him back whenever he's fit. And then as for Balassa, I would like to see him. I know like Howson and Hackney have played relatively okay. I would like to see him instead of Howson. I must admit, I think I get frustrated at Howson sometimes. Passing's just not as crisp, but that's just me being frustrated at the 1% of being much better. But yeah, I think Dan Balassa's great. He's definitely the future, and I think he will have a very big say in how we play in the coming years. But Dana, thank you very much for joining me as always, and to the listeners and the viewers, thank you very much for listening to us and watching us on YouTube. And don't forget to give us a 5-star rating on your Apple podcast provider or on the podcast provider that you listen to, because that helps us get found, charted, and all that fun stuff. And don't forget to like this video on YouTube. That helps us get up in the rankings and helps us showcase to more Boro fans and just football fans that like to watch shows about football. But for right now, Dana and all the listeners, Boro have had an Easter weekend. But can we resurrect the season in the coming games? This has been the Boro Breakdown podcast, and that was our Boro Match Day chatter in a pod. Up the Boro Breakdown.